So we were just talking with the Senior Technical Manager, Bureau Veritas Singapore, Ms. May de la Cruz. She was sitting live from Singapore. I hope you've got some insights there as well on how exactly do you successfully pass your third-party certification audits remotely. Today, our speaker is also sitting all the way from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Without much ado, he is the lead auditor, PECB, one of the most successful certification bodies in the world, a seasoned lead auditor for OSH as well, QMS, and a host of other ISO standards. He is one of the most successful certification body auditors that I have met. Good morning, Sir Ronnie. Are you there?
Good morning, Mr. Jong. Good morning, everyone.
How's everything in Saudi Arabia?
Well, it's getting hot here, sabi nga nila. Yeah, we are moving to summer season nowadays. Yes,
Okay.
yes. I was there 7 months ago. I was in my place during the lockdown period. So I have a bit a taste of the lockdown in the Philippines as well.
Nice to know that. And thank you, Sir Ronnie. Sir Ronnie, for the information of everybody, is our lead auditor for one of our very successful projects. I think they're also here, our team from the Notre Dame University. So they're prepping up for their upcoming surveillance audit with you, Sir Ronnie Mapanu. So I think, again, without much ado, Sir Ronnie, floor is yours. Let's all give a big round of applause to Ronnie Mapanu, lead auditor from PECB, sitting all the way from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, is going to talk about the secrets to success of doing audit. All right?
All right, Mr. Jong, thank you very much. Okay, I'll be sharing some of the important information related to successful audit. But in general, there's nothing new about audit, all right? So to speak, in terms of success or in terms of essential information, the basis of a successful audit is in the audit requirements itself. So I will go through the information and hoping that in one way or the other, you get valuable insight on how to prepare your documentation, so to speak. Let's start with the basic idea and definition of audit, right? Basically, audit is a systematic, all right, systematic and independent and a documented process of obtaining objective evidences, right? So to simplify that information, we can have the, of course, obtaining objective observation has some parameters to determine its fulfillment or what we call compliance. Okay, so to put that into a formula, right? An audit is basically criteria versus evidence, and that would be the audit findings. All right. So if we can put that into a formula, we can say that all audit has the basis of standard. All right. That would be the basis of the audit. All right. Mr. Joe, would you mind to show the second screen, please? All right. So basically, kung tutusin, ang audit ay simple lang, no? Kung titingnan natin sa perspective ng audit, una, kailangan natin, we need to know the criteria first, all right? And on that basis, all of the gathered evidence will be benchmarked to the mentioned criteria. So whether it is compliance or not compliance, the basis will be the criteria, all right? So in a way, any audit should start with understanding the criteria, the requirement itself, all right? Whether it is the first type of a first audit or internal audit or external audit, the idea is the same, all right? We need to understand what is the criteria, right? So moving on, the same principle will be used whether you are doing internal or external audit. In both ways, the idea of understanding the criteria applies in internal audit, like the first party audit, or the second party audit, which is external, or the third party audit. in general, the objectives, there are standard objectives of audit, that is all right, and that is basically to assess the conformity of the management system or any standard for that matter, right? So they are trying to compare what is the compliance or the degree of compliance or fulfillment, all right? And on the other hand, they need to assess also if this management system has the ability to achieve the organizational objective or the applicable requirements, and to check the effectiveness of the management system as well as point of improvement. So whether you are auditing 9001, 45001, or even the 14001, the audit objectives are standards, all right? So you will see in the audit plan, or even in the what we call the audit proposal, the objectives has something to do with assessment of the degree of compliance, all right? It's also important that the management system is able to realize or to achieve the intended outcome or intended result of the company. Otherwise, the management system is just mainly for desktop review or just for the purpose of compliance. So the first aspect is ensuring that the management system is in place and it is efficient, and on the other side, the effectiveness of implementation, as well as the ability to comply with other requirements. Of course, there's no perfect system, so there will be always a room for improvement. So having said that, the audit believes that and has the assumption that there will be a continual improvement process. That's why these are the audit objectives, all right? So if we consider the objectives, also one of the factors related to the success of audit will be the scope of audit itself, all right? So kung ang sinasabi ng kliyente ay ng certifying body ay ang scope natin, it has something to do with the processes, all right? Or yung scope natin has something to do with the interaction of the management system. So basically, dapat yung mga evidence natin will be geared towards that, okay? So an example of scope, you can consider key processes. Mr. John, would you mind to? All right. Next slide, please. All right. So the audit scope will determine the boundary of the audit or the management system. Therefore, this will be the main focus of the preparation, right? So when you're preparing for an audit, always go back to the scope of the audit, all right? Because the auditor will only limit its auditing activity based on the scope of audit, all right? So whether you are, you mentioned in the scope of management system that the application will be on key processes, or whether it is in department, then that's the limitations of your preparation. And all the information that you have to secure will be based on the audit scope, all right? So again, audit is simple, okay? We just need to make sure that the evidence of compliance has something to do with the fulfillment of certain requirements, whether the requirements is the standard or a kind of legislation or whatsoever. And then, of course, all the audit will have a unified and standardized objectives, as we have mentioned a while ago. And then another factor will be the audit scope, all right? Your preparation should be based on the nature of the audit scope. Otherwise, it will be a volume of information that you'll need to prepare. And also, you have to consider that what is the level of the audit? Is it first party, second party, or third party? And under the third party audit, you also need to consider if it's a stage 1 audit or the initial certification, or stage 2 audit. Because the approach in stage 1 and stage 2 varies from in terms of the documents that needs to be fulfilled, all right? So again, these are some of the parameters or some of the preparation that you need to consider when you are preparing for certification audit. Take note, you have to focus on your audit scope. This information is basically published or shared through a what they call an audit plan, right? So an audit plan will define what will be the activities of the audit. This will covers the general objectives as well as what will be the processes to be audited, right? So an example of the audit plan, as you can see on the next slide, would be, all right? Can we go down on that side? All right. Okay. Let's focus on the, we have mentioned a while ago, the scope and so on and so forth. Okay. So the audit criteria, therefore, will be something like the requirements or set of requirements that needs to be fulfilled. All right. Some of this I have mentioned a while ago, 9001 and so on and so forth. Okay. So the audit criteria is very important in terms of preparation. One of the essentials of audit criteria, it will be the benchmark on how to compare the evidence. As I mentioned a while ago, audit is basic, all right? They need to compare evidence based on the criteria, all right? So that will be the benchmark, okay? Now, as the auditee or part of the auditees, we need to make sure that we understand the criteria, right? Now, how you will understand that one? Well, there are several information that we need to consider when we're understanding audit criteria. And these are the what they call the language used in the criteria, right? There are several languages that we can consider. And that will be the verb shall, which means the requirements, or should, which means some kind of recommendation, all right? May indicates a permission, and can indicates a possibility or capabilities. Now all the requirements are coined in the imperative verb shall. So any requirements that has the verb imperative shall, those are mandatory. Like for example, the organization shall determine internal and external issue relevant to its function, and so on and so forth. Then, therefore, that means that we need to make sure that these internal, external issues are determined. So this is important. Under the criteria, you need to understand first what is the requirements of the criteria. More often than not, when we are preparing some kind of compliance, we overdo the process. All right. The process will only determine what are and how to are basically something that left to the auditor how to fulfill that requirements. But nevertheless, this is important information that you need to consider when you are understanding the criteria. Also, if you want to learn more about the information, you have to go through the entire criteria, and there are some useful information. Like for example, they put some kind of note or some additional information for guideline purposes. All right, under center standard, you will see below the specific clause requirements, there will be a footnote, so to speak, and that will give you some idea that that could explain further or guide you through the application process. Like for example, a note for clause 4 will say that an internal issues can mean political, external issue, I should say, can mean political, social, and so on and so forth. So under this standard, there are several information that you could use to further analyze and to further understand the requirements, right? And every standard has their annexes, all right? And that will serve some kind of practical application on how to implement and how to basically understand basic clauses. Like for example, when they are referring to clause point 6 in terms of planning, and they will indicate that these are the note in terms of risk assessment or planning aspect, and so on and so forth. Okay, so understanding the criteria first, you need to have a copy of that one. All right, that is mandatory. And then how you understand the requirements, then look for the verb use, and accordingly comply with all the imperative verb shall, and all other information could mean some permission or recommendation. And also, as you can see in the next slide, there will be some notes that you can consider.
Ronnie,
Yes. Yes, go ahead.
Before I go to the next slide, I think our audience right now, I think, would like to also ask this. I'm not sure, but I'm thinking about this. From the third-party auditor's point of view, what, how is the value of should, may, and can? Obviously, shall, it's a given. You will have to look for that during third-party audit. But for the should, may, and can, I think it's good if we can do this to our audience today. How much weight do you give to the should, may, and can when it comes to third-party audit?
Well, definitely there will be some kind of recommendation if it should. So that would be optional, and the other verb use will be some kind of possibilities. All right. So we are focusing on the shall verb. All right. All other verbs should be optional, right? If the requirements said that the organization should, so this will be more of a recommendation, right? So if that is the case, then that will not be part of the requirement itself. It will somehow enhance the implementation of the management system, but that will not be part of the requirements. Okay, and the rest of the information will be more of the explanation of the capacity or the capability of the organization. Okay, so the most important verb will be shall, right? And this will be mandatory. If the verb said the organization shall monitor and review, that is a requirement. All right. So if you see a verb shall, and it connotes some kind of it will imply some kind of action, right? If they said that it shall be part of the planning aspect, or should be considered in the planning aspect, then therefore the auditor will see the interaction of such aspect in terms of the processes involved, like planning, monitoring, and so on and so forth. So therefore, shall is the key word. All right, this is the catchphrase that will somehow highlight all the requirements based on the close-to-close requirements of any standard.
Thank you, Ronnie.
All right, so basically, if you would like to have more information about the standard, then go for the note. All right, each standard clause or each clause requirements will have a note aspect that will give you some guidelines or clarification associated with that requirements. Okay. So therefore, the idea then is know the criteria, know the standard. All right. If we know the standard, then if we go through the annexes of standard, that will give us the application process, and even to the point that the annexes of each standard will give you some practical application. Okay, not only the elaboration of standard, but they will. In some occasion, they will provide some specific application. All right, so understand the criteria. All right, and look for the imperative verb shall. All right, and if there will be some footnotes or some aspect of note, then read that through and understand further what is the the associated information in that requirements. Okay. Right. Moving on. As I mentioned a while ago, when we are preparing for audit, all right, it's a standard procedure that the third-party auditor will provide you an audit plan. And the audit plan determines the parameters of the audit. And aside from the general information of objective, scope, and so on and so forth, it will also define the processes to be audited. All right. So especially when you are doing surveillance audit. All right. In most cases, the surveillance audit are treated as the whole management system. All right. But in some occasion, it will be treated as a portion of the management system. Okay. So Therefore, you don't need to prepare all the, in terms of the documentation will be intact, all right? But in terms of the actual audit, surveillance audit, then you have to concentrate on the audit plan, which will determine the key processes to be audited on a certain year or certain time, okay? So aside from the standard information of objectives and so on and so forth, look for what is the specific process to be audited, all right? Now, the certification audit, the initial certification audit will cover all the management system, all right? The two surveillance audit covers 50% of the management system, all right? As an auditor, we have a three-year plan in terms of covering the whole management system, okay? So on the second year of audit, we will cover a portion of the management system or a portion of the clause requirements, okay? So if that's the case, you don't need to overdo your preparation when it comes to the whole management system. You have to audit the whole management system, but in terms of preparation, focus on the audit plan, right? And they will identify that on this year we'll be covering, like for example, we'll be covering the design aspect in terms of planning or in terms of operation. In terms of support, we'll concentrate on awareness and competency, all right? But documented information and communication will not be applicable for this year, all right? So audit plan will be a practical guide on specific processes to be audited, all right? So therefore, you have to be, to limit the unnecessary load or burden during the audit. Concentrate on the audit plan, okay? And also, this is a mandatory document that will be shared by the third-party auditor or the certifying body. So you will somehow you have to focus on this audit plan so that you can have a better chance of passing the certification or the certification audit, right? So audit plan is important. It's not just a piece of document for compliance, but this will limit and focus on specific processes or management system to be audited, all right? So audit plan is another issue. And then lastly, the audit evidence. This will be the main aspect of auditing, gathering enough evidence to conclude the level or the degree of conformity. Of course, we got the several types of evidence. It can be qualitative and quantitative. It should be available and verifiable, right? There should be a verifiable evidence of compliance. So in terms of audit types of audit evidence, we are using several types of audit evidences. Like for example, in the next few slides, we'll discuss the types of audit evidences, such as you get physical evidence, all right, or mathematical evidence, all right, confirmative, technical, analytical, and so on and so forth. Now, as an auditor, it is our job to collect and collate, then corroborate and analyze, all right? That is the key in terms of evidence. We need to collect different types of evidences, all right? Now, commonly, you will have documentary and verbal evidence, right? The entire process of audit will be focusing on two major aspects, mainly documentary and verbal. But on top of that, auditor will also observe, all right? That is physical evidence. And then he need to analyze, all right? Like for example, if the processes that the risk assessment process will concentrate on business impact analysis, all right? And this is step 1, 2, 3, okay? So he will pull out some kind of sample and then he will analyze if you are following the same, all right? So the types of evidence will be various, all right? Or there will be different types of evidences to be gathered during the audit activities, all right? But nevertheless, it will be collated, then it will be corroborated to see the consistency of result, all right? Like for example, in the process, you said that all the department heads should have an X amount of training, all right? So if that is the procedure, they will interview several members of the department head to confirm the degree of compliance. And probably they will do some kind of mathematical analysis if the number of training or level of competency corresponds to the criteria. All right. So the idea then is there will be several evidence type. All right. And these evidences are to be collected and collated. And then there will be some kind of cross-checking of information. Okay. So if there will be inconsistency in the result, then there's a problem in the system. All right. This consistency could trigger some kind of non-compliances. And on the basis of corroboration, all right, they will come up with their analysis if it is complying or not complying. Right. So the types of evidences will be a variety. And the aspect to be considered are the consistency of information. All right. So if you said that these are to be 1, 2, 3, then if you even you ask it with other members of the team, the same information shall be provided. All right. So and the types of evidences will be used as the basis of audit findings. All right. The nature of the amount of evidence that we will be gathering will be based on materiality and significance of the process. All right. So this is a key information. All right. Evidence will be gathered in terms of appropriateness, okay, and sufficiency. No, the idea of appropriate evidence would be: is it relevant and reliable? All right. Like for example, you are looking for some kind of compliance related to suppliers, right? So all the information provided should be based on the assessment or selection of suppliers and so on and so forth. And the general basis of evidence will be coined into word: materiality and reasonable assurance. Right now, the dependency or the reliability of audit evidence will be triggered by the evidence itself. All right. So evidence should speak for itself. Like for example, if you said that based on our training matrix, we need to conduct awareness session for all the newcomers. All right. And if you provide some evidence, okay, the evidence should speak for itself. If you said that this awareness training was conducted on December 2020, all right, something like that. Now, if the information provided in the evidence is not, is different. Like for example, it says that this is done January 28, 2019. Now, the evidence will speak for itself. All right, any information in the evidence will be treated as a objectively speaking. All right, we cannot interpret otherwise. If it said that this evidence covers 100 candidates, okay, and the information provided is not pertaining to 100 candidates, we cannot conclude otherwise. All right, the evidence should be treated as is, right, in terms of objectivity, as well as the timing of the evidence. All right. Now here's the thing: in auditing, more often than not, there are close compliance. When you look at the timing of compliance, in some occasion, it is too close to the audit days. All right. This is also a question of reliability. All right. If all of the information, all of the evidence are too close to the audit days, then there's something wrong with the reliability. Most probably, all right, the assumption will be it could be generated, or it could be manipulated, all right, or it could be haphazardly, complied for the purpose of this audit, all right. Secondly is the independence of the source, all right. Now, as a rule of thumb, the more objective and the more independence is the evidence, the more reliable is it. Okay, so like for example, if the evidence is, provided is internal documents, all right, that can be considered as evidence, but it is more reliable to have an external document like a confirmation for a third party or a LGU unit, all right, because it is independent, all right. if there would be a process of manipulation, there would be some complication or some kind of difficulties in manipulating the information. So the independency or the source of the information, the more independent is the source, the more reliable is the evidence. All right. The method of collecting evidence. All right. This is another aspect of reliability and the internal audit control. If there will be some kind of a kind of loose control in terms of documentation, then it might be a case of this could be an evidence that can be altered and so on and so forth. All right. So that is important in terms of considering an audit evidence, the reliability of the evidence. All right. Other than that, all right. Yes, go ahead, Mr. Jong.
So this 5 key points here is on the spot, meaning to say it's either external or third-party audit or second-party audit or first-party audit. The same 5 points here for reliability of audit evidence is really on the spot. And
yes,
this is what we've been telling our audience today, that in evaluating your documents and records, make sure that you evaluate those documents and records based on these 5 elements. Are they objective? When are they generated?
Obtained,
or when
yes,
are they? Yes, and the timing of those records. Just on the point number 3, Ronnie, independence of source. So when you are doing internal audit, I'm talking about the first-party audit. Are we saying here that we should add documents or evidence coming from third party or outside of the organization? Because
yes,
if it's inside the organization, maybe the independence may not be established when compared to if it's coming from an outside source?
In a way, yes, it will enhance the quality of your evidence, right? As we have mentioned a while ago, there will be a variety of evidence, right? We'll not be sticking to one type of evidence. And if we could complement the internal information or evidence with external information, there will be consistency, all right? That's logical, okay? If you said that you are doing these things, it can be confirmed both internal and external, all right? There will be some level of degree of verification. So in a way, if you combine external, then that's increase the quality of the evidence, all right? So, well, we're not saying that we are being skeptic in terms of judging the evidence, but this is being objective as well and professional. We need, of course, in practical, all right, as we put that into context, we can manipulate internal evidence. I can make attendance, all right, anytime soon, all right, even impromptu, all right, or even I can make a letter of appointment, things like that, all right. And if the control is this is not generated, this is manually generated, then that date line can be changed, signatory can be changed, and so on and so forth. Okay, but it is different if the verification comes from outside or external source. That could take some time in terms of if it's more of some kind of technical verification or some kind of laboratory test. Those are something that difficult to manipulate. Okay, so that increases the reliability of the evidence and contribute to the quality of evidence as well.
Thank you, Ronnie. Again, to our fellow auditors watching this webinar right now, this is the crew of the matter here. This is the meat of the matter. This is the whole point of the discussion here on how do we audit, how do we evaluate the documents and records. So kindly take note of these 5 elements right here and use that as your criteria in evaluating your documents and records during audit. Go ahead, Ronnie.
Yes, and then materiality. The evidence is based on the materiality of the process or of the standard or aspect. All right, so we will be judging the evidence based on materiality. All right, as simple as this. All right, we focus on key processes. All right. There will be several other processes that the organization established, But nevertheless, we focus on key processes that affects the specific management system, right? Like for example, if it's a quality management system, so the key processes of the quality management system should be material to us, all right? Like for example, customer feedback, all right? Vendor selection, all right? Some kind of SWOT analysis, all right? Or external analysis, all right? Those are key processes, all right? So the materiality is very important in terms of providing evidence or even focusing on processes. We can do we can provide a single process for every activities of the organization, but that will not help us in terms of fulfilling the quality management system if the processes that we are providing is it's not key processes, right? I'm not saying that we only focus on key processes, but in terms of focusing, in terms of audit evidence, and in terms of audit verification, we concentrate on the criticality or the materiality of the process. Okay, and there are several indicators of materiality. All right, these are process, criticality of process, all right, the cost of the system, all right, cost of the operation, potential cause of errors, number of hazard. This is related to health and safety, service level agreement, and non-conformity penalty. So these are some of the factors to be considered in choosing critical processes or analyzing if this process is critical or not. All right. So that is important in treating the evidence. Now, in general, we cannot audit everything. All right. So the idea then is reasonable assurance. Now, here is where the professional judgment comes in when we talk about reasonable assurance, because this has something to do with the method of sampling. All right. Every auditor is free to choose any types of method sampling, right? Whether it's stratified, whether it's random, whether it is some kind of subset group, all right, or whether it is related to professional judgment. Now, the idea then is reasonable assurance. Now, the ISO audit in general can never claim an absolute assurance of covering whole numbers, all right, or whole processes, all right. He will do random sampling, all right. And now, if the auditor is, experienced auditor, he got his random sampling strategy, all right. He will not just, they call it stratified random sampling, right. So he will be choosing a specific numbers of sample within that population, right? Like for example, if it's some kind of monthly report, he will focus on several important pattern, all right, of report numbers or months and so on. Okay, now that will be part of the auditor's point of view when it comes to reasonable assurance. Okay, we will be focusing on sampling, and normally that minimum requirements will be 25% of the total population. So if you are preparing for reports, make sure that at least 25% of that is, basically covered with a good quality evidence. All right. Well, but that will somehow considered in terms of the competency of the auditor. If he will be doing random sampling, then you can provide any months for that matter. All right, any month for that matter. If it's stratified, then he got a unified sequence of choosing the numbers of sample. Right now, here's the thing about documentation guidelines. All right. The key word is documented information. You'll be hearing this one throughout the audit process. But the key word of audit is documented information. An audit to have a good quality information or evidence should fall in the principle of documented information. This covers the types of document, all right, which has something to do with any process or any requirement should have a basis of doing, all right? Or they call it establish framework, all right? And any requirement should have a process of implementations, all right? As well as monitoring and review. And then lastly, it should have a evidence of compliance, okay? Like for example, let me put that into a specific, all right? Leadership, all right? And under the leadership, like let's say quality policy, all right? So first of all, there should be a basis of doing a quality policy. What is the perspective of the leadership regarding the quality policy, right? Secondly, there should be a way of implementing the quality policy, all right? Or there should be a procedures of establishing the quality policy. And in the process, we need to check if the quality policy is being communicated and understood and so on and so forth. And there will be a level of compliance. How you say that the quality is communicated, then you should provide an evidence showing that this quality policy is being transmitted or being disseminated inside and outside the company, all right? So all of the requirements, all right, when you read it, and you understand the whole requirements, it will provide a generic term of documented information. Okay, so if the evidence provided is a document information, therefore this documented information will provide you all the needed process, right? So the content will be based on the criteria. All right, what is the requirements of the standard, and the format itself will follow the documentation format of the company that is provided by specific process. And then lastly, it will provide some kind of life cycle management. Okay, so in general, these are the management system documentation. The keyword is documented information, right? Any requirement should pass the test of a documented information. Okay, and hopefully all of this information will be used in terms of audit findings. And there are, as we know, that the audit findings will be on the basis of the collected evidence, all right? So this is the audit findings. And as we know, all know that there are several audit findings. We got conformity, all right? Non-conformity, in terms of non-conformity, you got minor non-conformity and major non-conformity, right? So we will basically discuss that one in brief. Okay, so conformity is compliance to the requirement. Observation is some kind of situation that could lead into non-conformity later on, right? Minor non-conformity and major non-conformity. So these are the types of audit findings that will be provided by the auditor based on the collected evidences, right? So therefore, as we have discussed a while ago, this non-conformity will be the subject of your action plan, all right? The action plan, if there will be some kind of non-conformity, then you need to provide an action plan. Of course, non-conformity, there's no need of an action plan. But if it's a minor non-conformity or major non-conformity, then you need to provide an action plan. I think we can go to the last slide, Mr. Jong, just for doing some recap on the action plan, all right? Okay, I think that one. Now, when the auditee is required to provide an action plan to every non-conformity identified. Now, here's the thing about non-conformity. Okay, as I mentioned that there will be two aspects of action plan. The action plan should be both corrective and correction, all right? Correction means an immediate solution to address the problem, right? That is short-term solution. Then it should be corrective to prevent the non-occurrences, or it should be able to identify the root cause of the problem. All right, so that is the general guidelines of accepting an action plan. So you need to identify the short-term solution and the long-term solution. Okay, and on that basis, the audit decision will be, concluded on the basis of evidences gathered by the auditor during the audit, and as well as the compliances or identify the non-conformity and on the basis of action plan as submitted. Okay, so hopefully after we have gone through this information, you can have the certification decision and favoring your company, or even there will be some kind of a minor non-conformity. The key word for this is you have to basically identify the correction and the corrective action. Now, why we need to identify that? The simple reason is the correction will be an interim solution. We need to keep the business going and operating. So there will be some kind of quick fix solution, right? So that's why the requirement says that you need to be able to correct the problem at hand. In the long run, you need to identify the root cause so that you can prevent it for recurrences. That means you have the corrective action. So the corrective action is more of a long-term solution. Okay, a correction is an immediate solution to the identified problem. Okay, so pretty much that is the idea of the if we will put that into a concept, that could be the main ingredients of a successful audit. All right, so again, as a recap, audit findings will be based on the collected evidences. All right, and this will be compared to the standard or the criteria used during the audit. So therefore, we need to understand what is the criteria all about, and have a good grasp of how to provide a more relevant and sufficient evidences. All right.
Ronnie?
Yes, go ahead, Mr. John.
Amazing job right there. Thank you for putting all of this information in less than an hour. I understand you need to run in 5 minutes, but
yes.
I'd like to just again emphasize for our audience today, in evaluating your audit records, as mentioned here by Sir Ronnie, you need to evaluate. Make sure that you evaluate this audit evidence, this documented information against these 5 very important criteria or elements here in making sure that your audit evidence is indeed reliable. We can have a question or two maybe. We're pressed for time here, so do we have questions or clarifications from our audience today? Please let us know. I think we can still squeeze in 1 or 2 here before we wrap this webinar today. While waiting for their questions, Sir Ronnie, if there is, maybe just if there's one thing you need to make sure that the document should have, what would that be when you're auditing?
Well, that would be the degree of compliance to the criteria, because we cannot decide otherwise. All right, the basis of the analysis will be the criteria. So the first aspect is understanding the criteria, right? Whether it's a simple standard or simple regulation, you need to understand the criteria, right? A good grasp or understanding of a standard will provide you a better application of the process. All right. So first, for us, we always look to the standard. All right. What's the standard requirements, right? So, and that will be the basis of analyzing the information or collect or asking for supplement evidence and so on and so forth. We always go back to the criteria, okay, or the standard per se.
All right, there you go. Ronnie Mapanu, lead auditor, PECB. Wonderful presentation, a lot of insights, good information. Thank you so much, Sir Ronnie, Thank you for sharing your time with us this morning. And by the way, our team from the Notre Dame University is here, Sir Ronnie. So we just saw a message there from Noel Riponte, very well said, and they're looking forward to meet with you in their upcoming surveillance audit. So,
yeah, looking for likewise here.
All right. Okay, I think that's it for today. Thank you so much, Sir Ronnie. You stay safe right there in Saudi Arabia, and we hope to see you soon here back in the Philippines.
All right. Have a nice day and keep safe there. Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right. Thank you, Sir Ronnie.